ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. واعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين والجار ذي القربى والجار الجنب والصاحب بالجنب وابن السبيل وما ملكت أيمانكم إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخورا. صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. My dear respected listeners, since the past many weeks we've been talking about the ways that the Prophet ﷺ has taught us to coexist with our fellow creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be them Muslims, non-Muslims, be them human beings or any other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today the ayat that I have recited, parts of it we have talked about, not under this ayat specifically, but the rights of parents that the Prophet ﷺ has so much emphasized upon. Of course, first is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not associate any partners in letter or in spirit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His worship. All the rights of other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are dictated by the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are a Muslim, you will fulfill the rights of a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the creations, all the ibad, all the animals, all the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you have submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being your only ilah, you will listen to Allah and fulfill His command in the matter of fulfilling the rights of everyone. So today what we want to emphasize on is these four kinds of people. The first one that I want to mention from this ayah are the yatama, those people who are called orphans. And in the language of Sharia, the definition of an orphan is that minor child, so below 15 years of age in the rulings of Sharia, whose father has passed away. So that child is called an orphan. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that there's so many virtues associated with taking care of an orphan child. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, in the time of Sahaba, there was many orphans in the society. And the reason was that people would die more often because of sickness and because of fighting for i'la, for fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for justice. So there was many orphans. And the Prophet ﷺ emphasized it and joined it very strongly, that these orphans should be taken care of. When hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ has said that the best house among the Muslims, among the houses of Muslims, the best house is that house in which an orphan is treated well, a yatim is treated well. And the worst house in the houses of Muslims is that house in which an orphan is treated badly, is not taken care of. There's several ayat of the Quran which mention the rights of inheritance and the rights of their wealth, that their wealth belongs to the orphans. In that time, when a man would pass away, his close relatives, the uncles of the bereaved, the children, they would come and take everything that they have left behind. The Prophet ﷺ, his deen, his sharia, his book, it clearly mentioned, it clearly told people that this is the right of the people who this person is leaving behind, their children, his wife, all of those people. Similarly, this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning in the very few things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has counted, that you have to take care of their rights of after his ibadah, and the rights of parents and the rights of the relatives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about yatama and masakin, the people who are orphans, the people who are needy. In our society, we should understand that there is a system where if a person passes away, or both the parents pass away in some calamity, in some accident, or for whatever reason, there is a system of social services which takes care of these orphans. And oftentimes, if the parents were Muslims, the children of Muslims may land into a non-Muslim family. Similarly, another thing that happens is that because these social services, sometimes they relieve the parents of the responsibility of taking care of their children, because they determine that the parents are not suitable, because they are not fit to take care of their children because of any happening that may occur. For example, some sort of punishment, corporal punishment, or those kind of things, where it is reported and the social services they determine that it is not safe to let these children stay with their parents. So practically, these kind of children also become orphan. These kind of children, they also become orphans. So our job as a Muslim is to be on the lookout and stay connected and take care of these children, because sometimes children are separated from their parents for a certain duration, where the parents have to go through certain training and certain classes, and then they are able to take back their children. And sometimes they are relieved for life, which is a very painful thing. But what can we do as a society? We might have children in our houses, we might not have children in our families, but we should be on the lookout, and we should stay connected and be aware that if there is such a case, that such and such Muslim family, and this is across the United States, you can adopt those children, you can give them home, you can give them family, even if they are not part of your state or your county. So if you stay active and you stay connected, then this is something that inshallah carries a great reward in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only taking care of a child who has practically become parentless, either by their parents passing away or through the system of the government, but also you raise and you protect and preserve the faith of a Muslim. You protect a Muslim child from becoming a non-Muslim, and this is a great service, a great service to the Muslim children, Muslim parents. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding. The other three kinds of people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although they are very closely related, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gone to great detail in mentioning them separately. وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. Practically they are all, if you put them in one word, they are all neighbors, somebody who is close to you. But وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى will be that living neighbor. So imagine how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going into detail and elaborating all kinds of neighbors. That neighbor which lives close to you, and that neighbor which lives far away from you, is farther from you. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ, and that person who is right next to you, to your side, sitting or in a line or wherever you are. So living neighbor versus non-living neighbor, long-term neighbor versus short-term neighbor. That neighbor which you are, whose house is right next to you, and that neighbor whose house is a little farther. That neighbor who is related to you, and that neighbor who is not related to you. That neighbor who is Muslim, and that neighbor who is not a Muslim. Under the tafsir of this ayah, the Prophet ﷺ has explained all these kinds of neighbors, and they have rights upon us. They have rights upon us. The Prophet ﷺ has said that the Prophet ﷺ said it with a lot of passion. Wallahi la yu'min. Wallahi la yu'min. Wallahi la yu'min. By Allah, that person is not a believer. By Allah, that person cannot be a believer. By Allah, that person cannot be a believer. The Sahaba asked, Ya Rasulullah, who cannot be a believer? The Prophet ﷺ said, that person from whose things, from whose atrocities their neighbor does not feel safe. And under the detail of this hadith, the ulama have written that this includes your Muslim neighbor as well as your non-Muslim neighbor. Because of your atrocities, and then the words of the hadith say that they feel protected. So it's not like you don't do anything that will harm them, but they should feel secure. They should feel secure. So you should be that kind of a person that they, although you've never had any interaction with them, or you've not done anything wrong or anything good with them, they should feel secure that this person is never going to harm me, that this person is never going to trouble me. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding. Therefore, living in this society, the Prophet ﷺ, there are several hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ which you may have heard as well. The Prophet ﷺ has very clearly mentioned the rights of a neighbor. The Prophet ﷺ has said that Jibreel alayhi salam kept on giving me directions about taking care of our neighbors so much that I felt that ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to include them in our inheritance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to tell us that they also have a right in your inheritance as well. But they do not have a right in our inheritance, but while we are living, they have a big right upon us. The Prophet ﷺ has said that make sure that the food that you are cooking, now imagine, the food that you are cooking, do one of the two things. Either make sure that the smell of that cooking does not reach them. And if you cannot do that, which is impossible, because if you're cooking something, the houses definitely in that time for sure were such that the smell would definitely reach the neighbor. The Prophet ﷺ said either do this, that the smell does not reach them, or definitely include them, share the meal with them. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ has said that if you are cooking something, increase the curry, increase the water in what you are cooking, and share it with your neighbor. So my dear respected brothers, we as Muslims living in a society, living and surrounded by non-Muslim people, this is a great chance for us. This is a great chance for us that we can invite people towards Islam. We can invite people towards the beautiful deen of Prophet ﷺ if we do not have the courage to go out and talk to them, and we do not have the knowledge and we are not able to talk with them and convince them. We should make sure that we invite them to Islam in subtle ways. And these are these ways that we take care of our neighbors' needs. Whenever they need something, whenever, for example, they need their lawn mowed, we should mow it for them. Whenever they need to go somewhere, they need help, we take them somewhere. Whenever we cook something, it is an ideal chance that we take it and we share it with them. Generally, people like it. Generally, people really appreciate it if you share your food with them. And us coming from different backgrounds, our foods are exotic. Our foods are alien to these people. When we share with them, they really appreciate it. So my dear respected brothers, we don't always have to keep talking about the beauty of Islam. We should show it on us. It should show on us that we are those beautiful people that you interact with. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding. A Muslim neighbor should be the star of the neighborhood. People should feel that people should be happy, people should be glad that a Muslim family has moved into our neighborhood, because their children are not going to interact with our children and take them in a bad way, because we are never going to get any harms from this Muslim. They are going to take care of their house in the best possible manner. They are always going to be concerned about our well-being, our needs as well. This is how a Muslim should be. This is what the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned. The third kind of people that the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned is your short-term neighbor. Your short-term neighbor. For example, you are sitting somewhere, there is a person sitting right next to you. They are your short-term neighbor. Similarly, if you're standing in line, there's a person ahead of you, there's a person behind you. These people are your short-term neighbors. Imagine Allah is mentioning in the Quran specifically Sahibi bil Jam, that person who's next to you, the person who's right next to you, their rights, how important they would be. So do not sit in a way that is going to trouble your person who's sitting right next to you. Do not occupy their space. Do not be in such a state that even if you do not touch them, still because of you they are not comfortable. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that if somebody has that kind of sickness in which the body starts emanating a bad smell, such person, it is better for them to stay home and not pray in jama'ah, because Allah does not want them to trouble others. The Prophet ﷺ has forbidden us to eat raw onions and raw garlic and any other thing, smoking, all those things that create a stench in your mouth. The Prophet ﷺ has told us to stay away from the masjid in that state. Do not come to the masjid, or in other words, do not eat those things or use those things and come to the masjid. Why is that? The Prophet ﷺ is telling us what? Be very aware how the person right next to you is feeling. If you are standing in a line, you can imagine what we want to do all the time. Cut through the line through however possible. Sometimes we'll have somebody placed in the line and then let them stand in the line, and then it's our neighbor or our relative, and we'll do hello, hi, and cross all the people behind them and join with them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. If it was not serious, Allah would not have mentioned in the Quran. If you are not fulfilling the rights of the person who is close to you, the Prophet ﷺ is going to the extent that you are not a believer. Although the meaning is that you are not a true believer, you do not have the highest state of Iman. Similarly, in one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ has said that I can swear that such a person is not going to enter Jannah. Such a person is not going to enter Jannah who does not care and who does not have a good attitude with their neighbor. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us those who are always aware of who we are as Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us look through this temporary surroundings that we have and put our focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we expect our reward and all sorts of good and bad coming only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these temporary benefits, these temporary things that we na'uzubillah do to others to get our temporary short-term benefits, they become meaningless to us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. Brothers who have prayed this sunnah should do so now. Jazakallah khairan.